let out a breath I didn't know I was holding, that kind of shit. It was so, so good. But in general, this series is now my heart, my entire heart, my total heart, because I don't even know if I'm correct about most of the things that happen in this book. Actually, there are 2 picks that I did not put in my top 10 based on vibes. Angels, welcome back to another video. My name is Ro and today we're going through my top 10 books of the year 2 different ways. So I thought I would do something a little bit different for my top books of the year. I do have a top 10 that I'm going to be going through with you first. Now this is my top 10 on first instinct, from memory, nostalgia, the kind of feeling that I have that this is the order of books from 1 to 10. Now, a lot of these are very different, let's say, so it's almost like the top 3 to 4, maybe top 3 is very solid, and then the rest of them down to 10 could possibly be interchangeable other than maybe the bottom 2. So there's kind of an in-between part where they're all sort of on the same level in my mind. Now, after this, after I've gone through them, I will be going through them extensively, talking about what they're about, what I loved about them, and then we're going to, interestingly, I think, take a look at my core pile ratings and see exactly what my top 10 is according to core pile. Now this is also a little bit of an issue with the ratings because I didn't realise, stupidly, that you could give half ratings in core pile. So for example, each of the categories I could have put like 6.5 in. Now this is something I'm going to be doing moving forward in 2022 because I do want to see a bit of differentiation in my ratings, because the top 10, I think the top 3 have the same, the middle like 6 have the same, and then the bottom one has something like that, but you will see later on. And basically, I think it'll be interesting to see what is my top 10 according to core pile. And I did pick my initial top 10 on feelings before looking at any of my core pile ratings, so that is completely unbiased and just, well, technically it is completely biased to myself, but it's not biased to the core pile ratings. It is just my own feelings and thoughts and what I think that I loved this year. So without any further ado, we're gonna go from number 10 all the way up to number 1 in terms of my feelings, and let's start it off. So coming in at number 10, we do have The Once and Future Witches by Alex E. Harrow. This is the lovely Illumicrate edition, and I just love the colour of these edges. I think that they are gorgeous. In fact, this is the only book box subscription book that is on my favourites this year. If I remember correctly, I don't have any others. This is the only one that has made it. This was actually my first 5-star read of the year. I read it in January, so way back when. This is a sort of feminist witchy retelling of the suffragists and that kind of movement that happened in the 1800s. I think 1893, there we go. So women don't have the vote, women still work in like factories and sweatshops doing sewing and etc, etc. There are 3 main characters. They are sisters and they basically are all witches, and a lot of the lore and the kind of magic system around the witches and the spells is based in like lullabies or old kind of rhymes, nursery rhymes, children's stories, and I loved that element of this book. I think it was probably my favourite part of it. I wasn't super keen on the 3 sisters in general as characters, but I think that was due to me not liking them as people, if that makes sense. It wasn't that the characters were written badly. In fact, I think the characters were written quite well, but I didn't feel really connected to any of them except maybe the main sister, James Juniper, who kind of gets more, let's say like more of a kind of concentration on her in this book, but you do get some POVs from the other 2 sisters as well. This, honestly, I'm actually like quite proud that something so early on in the year has made it to my top 10, because obviously it's been a whole year nearly since I've read this, so I'm really glad that this stuck with me. The writing is really flowery and lyrical, which is something that I really love. I probably wouldn't recommend this or the 10,000 Doors of January if you don't like flowery writing. I have soft DNF for the 10,000 Doors of January. I just keep forgetting to pick it back up. I will eventually read it, I promise. Number 10, super solid read. I came out of this feeling like so powerful as a woman and so very feminist, and I love it a lot, so I really think it's something that people should read. It is definitely a bit more historical fiction than fantasy, something that I find some books marketing the wrong way. I don't know if this was, I can't quite remember, but it is definitely a bit more historical fiction than fantasy. There are fantasy elements, and you know, you have the Mother, Maiden and Crone kind of old fable about witches, and obviously the lullabies and stuff, and there is an element of magic because they practice magic, but they are also not very good at it, or it's like it's been passed down so much and diluted so much that they don't know much. So there isn't a huge element of magic or fantasy in it, but there is a good mystery as well. Coming in at number 9, we have Jade War, and this is the gorgeous Illumicrate edition. This is the sequel to Jade City, which is behind me. I have not read Jade Legacy yet, so please don't spoil anything for me in the comments. Jade War is the sequel to Jade City. Jade City I gave 4.5 or 4.75. That is probably going to come in my almost but not quite video. But Jade War got a full 5 stars from me. Jade City is about 1920s sort of era. Kekon is the place, but it's an Asian fantasy setting on the Kekon Islands. Basically the Kekonese, they as a, I guess, race or ethnicity are able to use jade, like the literal gem jade, to kind of enhance their already good martial arts and abilities, and it enhances kind of their ki and that kind of thing, so that they become a lot stronger, faster. But the more jade you wear, it's kind of like a status thing that you can handle it because it is very strong, and a lot of people get like addicted to jade. They get jade withdrawals if you take the jade off constantly and on and off and stuff like that. But basically in Jade City there is this drug going around, an artificial drug has been made that makes it so that people who aren't Kekonese can use jade, but it is highly addictive, highly dangerous, and the two clans that control the jade and are in charge of Kekon, it's kind of like the two sides. You have the No Peak clan, who are the people we follow, and then the Mountain clan, which are kind of like the enemy, and you have a lot of gang warfare going on, territorial stuff, and as well as just like the enemy is like trying to sell jade off and sell off this drug, and it's a very cultural, personal thing to people from Kekon usually, so it's a lot going on, very political, but it is incredible. Again, I would say a bit more historical fiction than fantasy, but it's so good that I would highly recommend it to anyone. And Jade War just really upped the stakes from the second book, and I was just like on the edge of my seat, holding my breath, let out breath I didn't know I was holding, that kind of shit. It was so good. And I'm really excited to read Jade Legacy this month actually. At number 8, we do have the Nevermoor series, and I am putting this as a series because I reread Nevermoor this year and already gave it 5 stars, so I'm not counting that for this year, but I did read Wondersmith and Hollowpox and gave them both 5 stars. Now, all 3 of these books are pretty much on the same level for me. I thought they were all highly I don't even know the word. The quality was so high of the story and the characters that they were all basically on the same level for me. I'm not holding these up very well, so I'm going to hold up one. I do have a certain kind of, let's say, connection to the first book at most, I think, because it gave me such a nostalgic feeling. The trials in it are really good, which is my favourite trope, and the way it made me feel really was reminiscent of HP, and I think that something like this could definitely replace HP like forever for me, and I just love it. It's so good. And essentially this is a middle grade about our main character Morrigan Crow, the first being the trials of Morrigan Crow. She is destined to die on her 11th birthday, and she is a cursed child. So in her life, her parents, her village, everyone blames her for everything going wrong. And on her 11th birthday, she's kind of resigned, you know, I'm gonna die, and this guy turns up, Jupiter North, and he basically whisks her away to the amazing magical city of Nevermoor, and he says to her that in order to stay, she has to become a member of the Wondrous Society, but in order to become a member of the Wondrous Society, she has to go through trials, and away we go. That is the whole book. And then obviously in book 2 and 3, other things happen, other mysteries are continued. I think that the villain in this is so creepy. One of the actually creepy and scary villains I've ever read in an actual middle grade. Like, I was actually scared for her. How many times am I gonna say actually? I was genuinely scared for people's lives. This man has killed people. I was scared for Morgan, scared for her friends, and the same in book 2 and 3. I'm so hyped for book 4. It's out at the end of this year now, and I am so excited. But this genuinely makes my heart so warm. I think everyone needs to read it, regardless of whether you usually read middle grade or not. This is probably the best middle grade series out right now. In at number 7, we have The Ones We're Meant to Find by Joan Hurt. This is a standalone dystopian book. This cover is so gorgeous. I really want the Owl Crate version because it has like a nice cute pink wash on the cover, and I do also really like the end papers. So this is a bit of an odd one. I think it is a little bit of a polarizing read. I think people have a lot of different opinions about it because the ending is quite vague. I'd say it's quite open-ended, but I found that quite satisfying. I quite like media, books, movies, TV that do something a little bit different. So like in the realm of like Lost, the TV series, this is about a world where these two sisters live and climate change has wrecked the world. The highest in society can afford to live up in, I can't remember what they're called, but they're like these towers up in the air so that they are safe from all of the natural disasters that are rampaging across the world constantly now across Earth because of climate change. I say wealthy, but in the same way it's a little bit different. So everyone has a rank, kind of similar to that episode of Black Mirror called Nosedive, where she has like, you can rank people and rate people, but the ranking is based on your kind of carbon footprint type thing. But the thing is it dates back however long they can. So if your great grandfather owned an oil spill or oil field or whatever, your ranking today would probably be in the minuses. So people who have the top ranks are allowed to live in these beautiful air cities where the air is clean and, you know, this and that, and war and shit is rampaging on the floor. There's two main characters, C and Casey, and they are sisters, and there are 2 points of view. So C has just woken up on the shore of an abandoned island. She doesn't know what's going on, and it's been 3 years that she's been on this island now, and you get the POV of her like just living on the island, still trying to figure out how to get off it, how to get back to her sister. She's got memory problems, like things are happening. And Casey is her sister, who is back up in the air city, and basically her sister went missing. This is kind of just the story of them trying to find each other, so hence The Ones We're Meant to Find. So that is the premise. I think it's really well done. I think it's really well written. I really loved the intrigue for this was through the roof. It was a 10 on Corepile, and yeah, I just think it was really good. It does actually have a really low rating on Goodreads, but if you have similar taste to me, I really do think you should give this a try. It's also not very long, so I really would recommend trying it if you want to try something different. In at number 6, we have Legendborn by Tracy Deonn. This is a King Arthur retelling, but from a kind of Black Girl Magic kind of point of view. It is actually set in America, and it uses a bit of Welsh, which I was delighted to see, even if some of it was maybe a bit mistranslated or misplaced. But despite that, I still gave it 5 stars. I really enjoyed this. Loved the relationships, loved the angst in the relationships, loved the whole build up to the reveals at the end, loved the battle at the end. I loved hearing about the main character Bree, her like ancestry and how she has her own type of magic, hence the like red and the blue. It's just really well done, and I love a King Arthur retelling regardless. Like, I'll probably like it because I'm biased, but this genuinely I think was a really good retelling. I love the show Merlin. I did the Merlin readathon earlier in 2021, so just to prove how much I like King Arthur, this I think quite a lot of people like. I did get a buddy read on my Patreon up for it, and quite a few people gave it 5 or 4 stars, a couple of 3s and 3.5s, but I think it isn't for everyone. It is fairly thick for a first in a series. It's like 500 pages and the writing is tiny. But I flew through this in 2 days. I just really enjoyed it. Basically, Bree goes to university kind of 2 years early as like this honours program type thing, and there's lots of history on the campus, history with her mum. Her mum passed away in a car crash when she was young, but she has all these suspicions that it was not actually true, and she can actually see the demons. I don't remember what they call them, it's some Welsh word. She can see the demons and things that are in life, and it's kind of similar to the beginning of Shadowhunters, where like she can see them and then the people who are fighting them are like, why, how can you see them, and stuff like that. There is a lot going on in this. There's a lot of history. There's a lot of I think I was a little confused when it came to like the hierarchy of like there's a secret society that she gets to join, which is another trope that I really love. I think by the end it kind of all makes sense, but when I was in the middle I was a little bit confused on who is like who in the hierarchy. But again, despite that, 5 stars, thought it was brilliant. Really think everyone should read it. Coming in at number 5, we have The Winter of the Witch by Catherine Arden. This is the 3rd book to the Bear and the Nightingale trilogy, or the Winter Night trilogy. I ended up not reading this last year, as in 2020 for some reason. I kept putting it off. I think I was just scared that the finale wasn't going to be as good as the first 2 books, because I 5-starred the first 2 books. I was just very intimidated, but I am so happy I picked this up. It's just one of the best finales to a trilogy I've ever read, I think, personally. Everything wrapped up so well. Everything was just going well. The battles, the choices the characters made, the events that happened. I just think everything was perfect. I could not have asked for more. There was nothing lacking. The Winter Night trilogy as a whole, 5-starred all 3 books. I would highly recommend it. I just think it's so good. The first book is about the main character Vasya. It's kind of set in a fantasy, alternate fantasy Russia. It is very historical fiction, I will say, with sort of a mythology element, fable element from Russian mythology and Russian history, in terms of the little demons that you have that Vasya can see, but most of the population can't. This brands her as a witch in her village. There is a big kind of demon referred to as the bear, which I was told recently by Sasha from The Wild Sasha is a huge thing in Slavic folklore. The bear is like the big thing, and it's very symbolic in Russian culture and history, or it might just be Slavic in general. Basically, the bear is like manipulative, mischievous, tries to take over, is trying to push out everyone else's beliefs and things, is capitalizing on people's fear. It's just, I think it's so well done, the way the bear manipulates people, and it's really scary to read, and it's really creepy to read. And also, there is a huge part of Christianity versus paganism in these books. The Christianity side of things with monks and things, they are so afraid of paganism, so afraid of demons. Vasya gets so mistreated because of Christianity. I love reading about stuff like this because it just really interests me. I think it's a really interesting concept to have, and I just really enjoyed reading about the fight between Christianity and paganism and trying to like marry the two and get a balance of the two in the land. And yeah, I just really think everyone should read it. Coming in at number 4, we have Docile by K.M. Sbarra. This I read for the Burned Books Club, which was run by Maddie and Spoops. It has stopped now, but this was a dystopian book club pick. This, I would highly recommend you look up all of the trigger warnings, because there are a lot of trigger warnings, probably too many for me to A, remember, or B, go through right now, but a lot of abuse, sexual abuse, slavery, things like that. So in this world, there are people called dociles. They are people who sell themselves into slavery to pay off debts. So usually someone's son or daughter will sell themselves to pay off their parents' or family's debt, and that is what the main character does. He sells himself into slavery to this guy, I don't even remember his name, or Elisha is the guy who sells himself, Alex is the slaver, and Elisha is the slave. It is very difficult to read, it is very harrowing. Again, all the trigger warnings, please don't read this if you're not in the headspace or if anything that like that triggers you. It is made up, it is not a real story. I mean, almost obviously. It's set in a sci-fi / fantasy world, it is fictional. But basically, the main character gets kind of gaslighted and convinced that everything that he's been subjected to is fine. And as he goes along, he thinks he's falling in love with his master, Alex, and things like that. And it's very scary and creepy to read because you're watching it happen in front of your eyes. And Alex is the nice guy kind of thing. He's not as bad as other guys. It's written in a very specific way where people, I think, sometimes took this book the wrong way and thought that it was glorifying this abuse. I did not read it that way, and I think this is a very good commentary, and just it's a very harrowing read, and it is very well written. I flew through it. It's like 400 pages. 500 pages. I flew through it in like 2 days. It's very good, but also again, all of the warnings. We have our top 3 of the year. Now this is the very solid top 3, no movement here. All of the others may kind of shift about in the middle, but this is a solid top 3. Nothing else can replace these. But these 3 also are kind of on the same level, so they're in their own category of top 3. So coming in at number 3, we do have Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse. This is my lovely Goldsboro version. I love this book. This is one of the best epic fantasies I think I have ever read. We follow Serapio, who is going to be supposedly the avatar of the crow god come to Earth incarnate. This is a very weird belief that the crow kind of clan have. There are lots of different clans involved. I think there's 4 that follow like a different animal. There's several points of view in this book. One is from Serapio, who's been blinded. He's got scars all over him. No one really knows who he is, what he's doing. Then we have Shiala is a bisexual pirate. She is fabulous, and her ship is carrying Serapio. They have alternating points of view like within themselves, but most of the time they are in kind of the same vicinity. There is also a glossary at the beginning. So like the people of the Meridian. So you do have like the Watchers, the Skymaid clans, lots of different things going on. So it's very helpful at the beginning if you're not sure what's going on. Basically, in the holy city of Tova, everything in this book is coming up to something called the Convergence, which is kind of like a solstice type celebration. And every chapter has at the beginning, like it'll say like 5 years till convergence if they're going back in time, or like 2 months till convergence. So the chapter 1 is 10 years before convergence. So things like that. And everything that led up to this end of this book I thought was amazing. I thought the pacing was brilliant. I thought that every chapter I'm trying to figure out, okay, how long is this from the convergence? Okay. And I found it then a lot easier to figure out what was a flashback and what was like what's happening right now. So I found that a really, really good tool. And then the convergence itself I thought was just fantastic. I thought it was a very good kind of climax to the story, and I'm so excited for the sequel. It's out in like April, I think. But yeah, super good epic fantasy. What more do you want? Coming in at number 2, we have the entire Wayward Children series, except maybe Across the Greengrass Fields, because I did give that 4.5. But let's just say then, the first 5 books in the Wayward Children series, I could not put all of these on here because I gave them all 5 stars. However, I will say that the 4th book, which is In an Absent Dream, was my favourite. This is about Lundy, who is the therapist from the 1st book. Apologies if you don't know anything what it means, but it's a prequel, and it's set in the Goblin Market, which is all about what is fair trade and like what can you get for what you give and things like that. And it's a lot of logical rules, which really stuck with me. This one made me cry more than all of the others, but all of them did kind of make me cry. And I also would say the first one is probably my second favourite. But in general, this series is now my heart, my entire heart, my total heart. I love it so much. I really think that everyone should give it a go, and even if you don't like maybe the ones set in the modern day, possibly trying some of the just Portal Fantasy prequels, which are just about every single different world, because that is what the story is like. It does alternate, so the 1st, 3rd and 5th book are set modern day in Eleanor Westwood's home for wayward children, lots of W's, and follows a lot of characters, a whole cast of characters, whereas the 2nd, 4th and 6th books follow individual kind of prequel visits to other worlds. There are visits to other worlds in the 1st, 3rd and 5th, but it's kind of revisits to worlds you already know, or it's not like the initial magical opening of the door to a child, so it's a little bit different. The 1st book, I would say, is actually quite different to everyone else. When kids go into portals or doors like Narnia, Lion, Witch and the Wardrobe, that kind of thing, they come back out whether by accident or they've gotten kicked out or whatever, and the world usually is perfect for them. It is just basically attuned to their personality and everything. And Eleanor West's Home for Wayward Children is basically for those kids who can't cope with the fact that they can never go back, because it is very unlikely that their door will appear again, unfortunately. It's very sad. It makes me cry a lot. I am not looking forward to rereading them only because I don't want to cry. And I don't know when I want to reread them, but I probably will reread the first and the fourth quite a lot because they are my favourites. But again, I would highly recommend this to anyone. I know it is a very polarising series. A lot of people don't like it, and it's possibly the writing style is very flowery, very lyrical, which I obviously love, and some people don't get on with it, which is fine. It is my favourite series ever. And I got a tattoo saying "Be Sure" because that's what it says on top of all of the doors to all of the children. So yeah, bit soppy, but it is my favourite book and my favourite series kind of ever of all time now. And what has taken the #1 spot, you may ask? Most of you probably already know, but it is Middle Game by Shauna Maguire, the same author as Every Heart Doorway. So Middle Game is an odd book. It is very confusing. It has a lot of wibbly wobbly, timey-wimey stuff. It goes back and forth between POVs. It goes back and forth between timelines. It doesn't explain itself to you. It does not hold your hand in any way. And that is what I love about it. I love confusing books, stuff like Gideon the Ninth, the ones we're meant to find, stuff that's super vague and like kind of lets you figure it out on your own. I love books like that, and this is it. So basically this is about a set of twins who were brought into existence, and there are other couple sets of twins that kind of this scientist has brought into existence as well. A lot of it's to do with alchemy, but basically these twins, they've brought them into the world to try and be like the avatars for logic and maths, or mathematics. And the scientists behind this are wanting to get to the impossible city, which to me kind of represents the perfect alchemical mix, so possibly the elixir of life, stuff like that. It's still honestly very vague, and even upon reread I don't think I would still understand what the impossible city is or means, but that's why I love it. And there is actually a sequel / sister book coming out this year called Seasonal Fears, and every single book is going to be based around the different quadrants and different elements that the alchemy is based on. It's so hard to explain, so I'm not even gonna try. I just really recommend that you read this and make your own conclusions, because I don't even know if I'm correct about most of the things that happen in this book. But I'm so excited for the sequel. I will definitely be rereading this before Seasonal Fears. There isn't much else to say other than they have like a mental link, the twins, but they were brought up on opposite sides of America, and there's just a lot going on. There's a lot going on. So yeah, that was my top 10 of the year according to me. Now we are going to move on to me talking about what the core pile says, and let's just dive right into that. Okay, so I am ignoring both my rereads of Muse of Nightmares and Strange the Dreamer, because technically Muse of Nightmares got the highest rating on core pile for me. It got a 9.857, so the only one that didn't get a 10 was Logic, so the rest of them got 10s. I'm not counting rereads because I didn't used to use core pile, so I don't actually know what my initial ratings would have been for these rereads. Obviously the reason I'm rereading them is that I love them, so a reread rating to me does not count as a brand new rating or anything like that. So we are excluding Strange the Dreamer and Muse of Nightmares because they were 1st and 5th respectively on this list, but we are ignoring them. So coming in at #1 from core pile, we do have In an Absent Dream, which I'm honestly not actually surprised about, but this top, let's say top 2, actually do have the same amount on core pile, so they were rated exactly the same, and that is In an Absent Dream obviously is #1, and then The Winter of the Witch. So according to core pile, these two are kind of joint for top spot, but I think it was just that alphabetically In an Absent Dream came 1st, so that's why it's ended up like that. But these had exactly the same rating at the top. Honestly, I'm not that surprised. In an Absent Dream is my favourite book of the Wayward Children series, and I genuinely really love it, and I'm probably gonna reread it all of the time. So kind of unsurprised by that, and also unsurprised by Winter of the Witch, because that, I think, objectively and technically is a very good book, so the ratings would have been very high. Let's move on. So the next 3 have the same rating, and then the last 5 also have the same rating. So we have 2 at the top which have the same rating, we have 3 in the middle that have the same rating, and then 5 at the bottom that have the same rating. Again, I'm hoping next year this will be a little bit more dynamic and varied when I start using half measures for the actual core pal ratings, but because 9s and 10s it kind of has to be in order to be a 5-star, they are going to be quite similar or like overlaps with the ratings. So looking at number 3, we do have Down Among the Sticks and Bones, which I think to me is probably my 3rd favourite in the series. So again, unsurprised. And then we do also have Middle Game at exactly the same amount, which is surprising to me because obviously I've just said Middle Game was my top of the year, but In an Absent Dream has beat it technically in terms of what I rated it individually, let's say, for each category. So Middle Game, Down Among the Sticks and Bones, and as well Black Sun is also tied for number 3. We have a tie for 1 and a tie for 2, I guess, and a tie for 3rd. So this is the tie for 2nd. The tie for 1st was In an Absent Dream and The Winter of the Witch. The tie for 2nd is Down Among the Sticks and Bones, Middle Game, and Black Sun. Again, all that I knew were top ones, except for maybe Down Among the Sticks and Bones. I am actually quite surprised that this got such a high rating compared to the other ones that I have picked, because it wasn't my favourite one, but it was a very, very good one. Again, I've rated them all 5 stars except for Across from Grassfields, which is very close. There is only really a hierarchy in my head for that, but then when I look at this technically got a higher rating than Every Heart a Doorway. So it's very strange to see that, and I think it's quite interesting. So those are tied for 2nd, and then we have a whole load of ties for 3rd, and there are 5 books at the bottom here. Actually, there are 2 picks that I did not put in my top 10 based on vibes. According to this, Legendborn is not in my top 10. And The Ones We're Meant to Find is not in my top 10. Any of the Nevermoors are not in my top 10. However, this could also be due to Wondersmith having a W and possibly the H for Hollowpox as well, coming after a lot of these. So there could be some that are on the same level as these bottom 5, but it's just to do with the amount of how far down they are on things. But then the Well of Ascension is there, and that begins with W. The reason that these are here and not others is possibly because it goes in order of when I read them. So for example, The Once and Future Witches is now on here, one of the ones from my top 10, but also according to Core Pile I have The Once and Future Witches, which is after Black Sun, but this also could be due to me reading this in January. So there could be some more that are rated the exact same, which is 9.28. Well, 9.29 technically rounding up. So I may have a little check on that. But according to this, I do have The Once and Future Witches. I do have Jade War. I do have Every Heart a Doorway, but the last 2, I have The Well of Ascension, and I also have A Kingdom of Flesh and Fire, which is the 2nd book from Blood and Ash, which I would definitely not put in my top 10. Absolutely not. I tell you what, let's have a look and see if any others are rated the exact same. The only other one that is at the exact same rating actually is Hollowpox, which I find quite funny because it means that I've rated Hollowpox above Nevermoor and Wondersmith, which to me I didn't realise. To me, Nevermoor is my baby and it's my favourite one. So again, very interesting that Hollowpox was also at the same rating. I know this is technically 11, top 11 instead of top 10, but this did actually have exactly the same rating, and the only reason it wasn't there was I read it in December, so it kind of fell off the end of the top 10. But yeah, that is really interesting to me because that's where the 9.28s end and 9.14s start. Next down is quite a few different ones, including Beneath the Sugar Sky, The Ones We're Meant to Find, Legendborn, which are already in my vibesy top 10. So obviously, kind of the differences between these are a little bit negligible. Ratings aren't everything. The way you feel at the time may not be the way that you feel about a book later on at the end of the year or once you've had time to ruminate on it for a bit. stew on it and realise that it's a favourite of all time. I think that's quite interesting, and I hope you guys have enjoyed and found that interesting as well, to see my core pile top 10 versus my actual, what I feel is my top 10, which then is actually my top 10, I believe. I'm not going off core pile, I'm going off my own opinions and the way I feel now about these books looking back. But I still will continue to use core pile in 2022. I am really excited to see if she comes up with anything new to add to it, and kind of using it in a different way as well. Like I said, I want to start doing kind of half measures, because there have been a few times where I have wanted to, or not been really sure between a 6 and a 7, and for some reason my brain did not supply that you could put a 6.5. But from now on I will be doing that. Please do keep an eye out for my next video, because I will be doing a 5-star battle bracket where you will get to see the rest of my 5-star reads as well from this year, as I will be pitching them against each other to see which one comes out on top. And I think that that will be interesting to see which one comes out on top, considering my core pile one was technically In an Absent Dream and my vibesy one was Middle Game. So which one's going to come out on top when I'm pitting them against each other? We shall see. So if you did enjoy this video, please do give it a like down below. Leave me a little door emoji if you're here but you didn't really have anything to say but wanted to let me know that you were here. Make sure you subscribe to get all the future content from me in your inbox. All of my links are in the description, including my Patreon. And if you don't know what goes on my Patreon, then this is what you're missing out on.
Oh, Lynn! Lynn, I will... Guys, I can't cope with this.
Oh, well, it's pointless me carrying on.
Yeah, John, wait, don't export this one. He's got the bloody heart, like...
Speaking of my Patreon, I want to give a huge shout out to everyone at my deity tier, which has grown exponentially. I want to give a huge shout out to everyone new, everyone old, so I'm gonna have to move to the side so that we get the crab in frame. Okay, here we go. So that is Becca, Meg, Rachel, Lisa, Lydia, Mercy, Sarah, Tori, Liv, Adinda, Celeste, Britt, Marloose, Kay, Danny, Hannah, Andy, Chris, William, Lauren, Kate, Kendra, Ashley, KW, Frog, and Lynn. Thank you guys so much for all of your support, and I'll see you in another video. Bye!